What happens when the son of the sea god goes head to head with the Knight of Wind? Percy Jackson versus Kaladin Stormblessed. Sup folks, Robot here, and today I've got another interesting versus battle to pitch today, one between Percy Jackson from the Radiance and Kaladin Stormblessed from the Cosmere by Brandon Sanderson. Funnily enough, these two series are actually what got me into reading at different points in my life. Growing up, I wasn't really allowed to watch or read Harry Potter, so Percy Jackson kind of became my intro into reading at that level, and I really dug the series and I started reading. I basically read all of it, from the Percy Jackson the Olympian series to the Heroes of Olympus, to the Kane Chronicles, which are really underrated, to the Magnus Chase books, and even some of the Trials of Apollo books, but I started to kind of age out of them around that time period. And I actually got into the Cosmere when I had been on like a hiatus of reading since like high school. It was finally one of the first book series that actually was able to balance the action and adventure with like more mature levels of storytelling that I'd been missing for the longest time. So with that said, and season 2 of the Percy Jackson adaptation out, I really wanted to pitch a versus battle between the poster boy of both universes. For this fight, I'll be using Percy as of the Blood of Olympus. I know I said I've technically read some of the Trials of Apollo series, but I kind of fell off after book 2, but I don't really recall Percy doing anything super impressive, but just so I don't get comment, I'll cap it at the end of the Heroes of Olympus series. And for Kaladin, I'm using him as he is by the end of Rhythm of War. I could technically use him by the end of Wind and Truth, but for spoiler reasons, I have no idea how different his abilities are at the end of that book. Also, because of how much reveals are so rewarding in the series, and the fact that it hasn't had a major adaptation, I'll be as vague as I can when describing stuff from the Cosmere. However, it's impossible to not reveal a couple of things, so spoiler warning. Anyways, that's enough of the preamble, let's get into the fight. So to set the scene, the Golden Fleece has disappeared from Thalia's tree on Camp Half-Blood, and Percy's been reluctantly sent on a quest to retrieve it. He's once again traced it to Polyphemus' island, and is now currently battling the giants to retrieve the fleece. We see Percy dodge a boulder thrown by Polyphemus that smashes into the beach side. He immediately counterattacks, raising his fists and summoning a watery fist from the depths that smashes into Polyphemus. As the two are engaged in the battle, an unseen attacker slashes clean through Polyphemus' neck. A fatal blow. Percy looks up and sees Kaladin floating in the air, much like his friend Jason, all while Polyphemus' eyes burn. Kaladin is there because he needs the fleece, as it's a large source of investiture that he would need to help him get off-world. As the two examine each other, Polyphemus disintegrates into yellow smoke, which scatters in the wind. The fleece previously strapped to his shoulder is free for the taking. Percy and Kaladin immediately lunge for the fleece. Each one grabs a hold of it, and now it's a fight to get the other to let go. Percy goes for a horizontal slash, but Kaladin counters by going airborne and diving in with a thrust of his spear. However, Percy is no stranger to flying opponents, and even better for him, this one is connected to him. So he pulls on the fleece and throws off Kaladin's aim, guiding him instead to hit the water. That said, two can play at that game. Kaladin, holding his end of the fleece, kicks at the hide to tug at Percy, who'd instead expected that kick to be aimed at him, the quick tug sending the other fighter to the surf. Kaladin, seeing he has the upper hand, wants to end this quick. A spear is unwieldy at such close ranges, so he morphs his spear into a sword and comes down with a modified flame stance strike. His sword lessons are paying off. The ever-feisty ragamuffin Percy, though, is awake to the attack and makes an evasive maneuver, ducking, tucking and rolling. Hazel will be proud. He completes the action by erupting the water beneath Kaladin to throw him off balance once again. This leaves both fighters panting while they face each other. They both realize that paradoxically, to get the fleece, they have to let go of it first. Kaladin lashes his end of the fleece, while Percy has water tendrils grab onto his end. The fleece once again is held in a tug of war between the sea and sky, all while Percy and Kaladin go all out. Percy unleashes the Tempest, releasing the force of the ocean in an almost anime-esque giant blast of water pressure. However, like my 10th grade econ teacher says, you don't use a shotgun to kill a mosquito. The charge up time for the attack gives Kaladin more than enough time to evade. Kaladin catches one of the rocks blown away from Percy's attack, and triple lashes it aimed towards his attacker. Percy counters by summoning a water hand from the depths to intercept the projectile. The resulting clash causes an explosion, sending sea spray and rock fragments all over the beach. A sense of calm comes after as a light mist envelops the battlefield. Both combatants know it's not over yet, and charge forwards. Kaladin emerges from the mist, with his spear morphed into a shield, to meet Percy's sword strike. In close, Kaladin emulates the assassin in white and lashes Percy. Task complete, he thinks, unaware that Percy has summoned water tendrils, which wrap themselves on his legs. Percy is sent hurtling to the sky as Kaladin is pulled beneath the waves, With everything on the line, nothing can be left off the table. Percy summons a storm, the sky darkens, the winds rage, and the sea trembles. A hurricane erupts centered on Percy, its weight pushing him down to meet his foe. Kaladin calls on his plate, the armor forms around him, sabatons, greaves, and pauldrons materializing and locking into place, each assembled piece providing protection from the pressure of the depths as he propels himself out of his aqueous prison. The two heroes come in for another clash, the son of Poseidon descending from the sky, and the Windrunner ascending from the depths. So in the end, who's leaving with the fleece? To give an answer, you'd have to examine the fight based on three major categories, namely physicals, equipment, and abilities. Starting off, both characters are superhuman, if not borderline super soldier level. They've both shown incredible feats of strength, speed, and for the purpose of combat, skill. If you got them into somewhere like the UFC Performance Institute, you'd see that Percy has been able to tangle with inhumanly strong monsters with just his bare hands. He was able to tussle the Minotaur, which can throw cars like softballs.
They threw up a forklift truck like it was a softball!
He can jack up Antaeus the Giant, and he can clash and fight with suppressed deities like Ares, Hades, Hyperion, etc. Similarly, Kaladin has a daily routine of clashing with singers who are already baseline superhuman, each one being capable of overpowering the strongest of men, and performing feats like jumping 30-foot caverns. He was also capable of holding his own against shard bearers, who I'll get onto in the next section, without plate of his own. Similarly for speed, it's pretty blatant. Both have displayed lightning timing feats. Percy's been able to rival Jason and Thalia in hand-to-hand combat, and both have lightning timing feats. Heck, they're both children of Zeus/Jupiter, and can summon lightning in combat. If you can keep up with them, you're automatically a lightning timer. Whereas Kaladin has shown off his speed by scaling above a certain type of singer who can fire off lightning. Since he's also fought in the middle of storms, where lightning is flashing all around him, he'd have to have been capable of staying out of the way of those. And finally, for the purpose of this battle, both are extremely skilled combatants in hand-to-hand and with weapons. They can mow down hordes of enemies, and have been described as being like demons or monsters on the battlefield. That said, they're both not grandmasters, as they've been prettily handily dealt with by real grandmasters of the blade, namely Chrysor and the Judge. So for the purpose of this battle, it's pretty close. Neither is gonna blitz or Ip Man the other, but if you wanna split hairs, Percy does have an edge in the physical strength department. He's more easily capable of scrapping in the pocket and taking damage when facing these inhumanly strong enemies, whereas Kaladin plays more of a ranged and evasive type game against such foes, as he isn't quite durable enough to straight up take their blows without taking extensive damage. In battles like these, a huge deciding factor in picking the victor is what arsenal either fighter has. For this battle, I gave both characters what either has in their standard equipment, so no one-time weapons they used or previously had. This is really for Percy, as the list of shit he's used is almost enough to arm a small militia. The only real constant in his arsenal is Riptide, and that's what I'm using for this battle. It's a celestial bronze sword that can transform into a ballpoint pen for ease of transport. Additionally, it's enchanted to always return to Percy's pocket, so in the event that he loses it or Kaladin lashes it away, Percy will always be able to retrieve it by reaching into his pocket. Similarly, Kaladin comes in carrying three major items: his shard spear, shard plate, and infused spheres in his clothes to power his radiant abilities. His shard spear is his main offensive weapon. The blade is basically like the soul split katana from JJK. It cuts through the soul of any living thing it encounters, and for non-living things, it cuts through most things like a hot knife through butter. His shard spear can also morph into different weapons and tools like a sword, hammer, or even a shield. Like Riptide, it's also pretty difficult to be disarmed, as it can be summoned with just a thought, regardless of where it's being held. The main hiccup I had in this battle was how the shard spear would interact with Riptide. Would it cut through it or not? Without getting too much into the details, there are some things that a shard weapon can't cut through. One of them being things which are sufficiently invested, or in plain English, things which have a lot of magic energy infused into them. And in this case, Celestial Bronze fits that bill. It's a magic metal mined from Mount Olympus, and it's deadly to creatures of the magical world, so essentially the two can have a sword fight without Percy getting sliced in the first clash of blades. The best way I can describe shard plate is that it's just fantasy Mjolnir armor. Basically just imagine Master Chief in like a Dark Souls setting wielding a sword. Aside from providing the general defense armor does, it enhances the strength and speed of the wearer, allowing them to perform incredible feats like holding up the foreclaw of a chasm fiend, or to turn men or singers into red mist with basic punches. Also, if the pieces are broken or damaged, Kaladin can regrow them by infusing Stormlight into the damaged areas. And finally, the infused sphere is sewn into his clothes, Power Kaladin's abilities and shard plates. He carries a sizable stash to power his abilities for a period of time. I think it's pretty obvious who takes this category, and yes, while some could complain that I could adjust the specific versions I used to grant Percy more tools like the winged shoes, Annabeth's invisibility cap, or the Nemean lion pelt, the same would only be fair for Kaladin, and that would basically take away some of the few weaknesses he has in this battle. Now this is the real meat and potatoes of this battle analysis, as it's where the two vastly differ. So like last time, I'll run through the abilities of both, which I believe will be crucial in getting the advantage in this fight, and point out the counters, if any, the other has to them. To start off with Percy, he's basically a cross between a waterbender and Aquaman. Heck, if you're reading DC Comics right now, he is actually Aquaman right now. His main application of these powers in the fight is in creating water constructs or generating water which can fire off like a high pressure water jet. These are necessary as he's fighting an opponent who can fly and stay out of sword range. He can use these attacks to pin Kaladin or even knock him out of the sky. Once he's underwater, he can pull him under and crush him with the water pressure, attack him underwater, or just drown him if he wants to be cruel. Kaladin's main counter is just to not get hit. That said, if he's pulled under, he can summon his shard plate to provide some protection from the crushing water pressure. Now I don't think it's strong enough to outright tank the pressure indefinitely, but it can prevent an Ocean Gate type scenario. While the cracks form across the plate and he holds his breath, Kaladin would be able to get some time to fight back against Percy if he's under with him, or try to escape if he's just being submerged. The second thing in Percy's locker for this fight is his weather manipulation. While he's not on the level of Children of Zeus like Jason or Thalia, he can generate storms, particularly of the tropical variety, like hurricanes and typhoons. These would be useful in throwing off Kaladin mid-fight, or possibly even sucking him down. Shit. I mean, he could use the winds to funnel him downwards. However, much like Percy wouldn't try this against Jason or Thalia, he probably shouldn't do so against Kaladin. This is because Kaladin is just straight up able to stonewall such an attack. He was capable of using the spirits of the wind to create a pocket of calm in a storm so big it would make Hurricane Melissa look like a light drizzle. So nothing Percy can do is really gonna test him in that area. Finally, the non-offensive use of his abilities that's crucial for this fight is in the sustenance the water provides Percy. He can use it to heal wounds like cuts and bruises, and it generally empowers him to continue fighting. Essentially, in most battles, so long as he's in the water, his gas tank is basically unlimited. Switching over to Kaladin, I actually found it interesting as to how similar his abilities are to Jason, who's basically one of the few other demigods who can rival Percy in power. They can both fly, manipulate wind spirits, and make other things fly. The mechanics behind how they do it is quite different, but the effects are surprisingly similar. Jason's are from his demigod lineage, whereas Kaladin's are from his radiant oaths and are powered by the amount of stormlight he has. With that said, the relevant abilities he has for this fight are his basic lashings. This ability allows him to make an object or a person fall in a certain direction. Aside from granting him flight, it's useful in this fight by providing him a means of attacking from range. It's kinda pointless if he can fly, but has to get in sword range to actually fight. He can lash objects towards Percy, and the more stormlight he puts into it, the faster it can be launched. However, much like it'd be ill-advised for Percy to challenge Kaladin in the air, it wouldn't be a viable strategy for Kaladin to try to overpower Percy with his lash projectiles. Percy's constructs and general water attacks are so much more powerful than anything Kaladin can realistically achieve by lashing an object that they basically blow him out the water in terms of power. Pun intended. I don't want to get into some headcanon where Kaladin can lash an object enough to basically function like a railgun or something, but I'm not really gonna do that. Essentially, these lash projectiles would only be useful as pot shots to keep Percy on his toes. The actual best use of his lashings would be to get Percy out of his element. If he can get in close, he can lash him upwards and take the battle into the sky. Once again, Percy does have an answer to this, that being his mini hurricane move that he used to fight against Hyperion and the son of Sobek. He can create a miniaturized hurricane around himself, which basically functions as a combination of all his abilities. The winds it generates provide protection from ranged attacks, the water provides a constant supply of healing, the mist and spray also make it harder for his opponents to track him and his movements. And most importantly, the weight of the water and air makes Percy heavy enough that it becomes a bit more of a strain for Kaladin to keep him aloft. Finally, Kaladin's best ability in this battle is his regeneration fueled by Stormlight. He and other Radiants can heal to an almost Deadpool Wolverine-esque level near instantaneously. They've been able to regrow limbs, heal from extensive burns, and survive being donated. In fact, the only real way to take them out is to sever the spine, decapitation, or straight up vaporize them. So in this fight, he has quite a lot of leg room to take damage and keep chugging. Now I don't want to come off like a fence sitter, but I generally don't think either one has a clear advantage in this section. For every move they have a counter, and they both have ways to ensure they're in top shape throughout the bouts. So I just really have to give this section as a draw. So after going through all that, who wins? This is probably the closest fight I've done so far on the channel. Both have very feasible win cons. Percy's being to fight a battle of attrition, he can stonewall all of Kaladin's ranged attacks, and in close, he's strong and skilled enough to match him. Even if he dons the shard plate, Percy's water constructs can be used up close to deal damage like he's done with similar superpowered foes. You just have to make sure he doesn't get stabbed near his vitals or get cut clean through on any of his limbs, as his water healing doesn't heal the soul damage. If he can do that, he'd be able to outlast Kaladin till all his Stormlight reserves depletes, and at that point he can easily finish him. Whereas for Kaladin, his win con is to land a clean hit on Percy with his shard spear. His weapon negates durability and can basically deal instant death if it connects. He just needs to use his other abilities to create a distraction or an opening for him to land that killing blow. His healing factor and shard plate also provide him a large buffer for taking damage during his multiple attacks, and if Percy goes full ham on unleashing his power, he can always just fly out of range. With that said, I lean just a bit more towards Kaladin. I think he would ever so slightly be more likely to just land that one clean hit on Percy before he runs out of Stormlight in this fight. If I had to put a number to it, overall I'd say he takes it 6 times out of 10. Now are there certain versions of Percy where I think he'd win? Yeah. Specifically his last Olympian form, after he bathed in the river Styx. His invulnerability would hard counter the shard spear, as it was capable of allowing Luke's body to withstand Kronos' soul without disintegrating. That said, I could say that whatever abilities Kaladin obtains from his actions at the end of Wind and Truth, if they're anything like the others we've seen in the books so far, would give him newer win cons that could compensate for that. But that's a different discussion for another day. Maybe I'll run it back in 2032 when Stormlight 6 is out. Jeez, these books are so long ago. Anyways, regarding the comic, how do you guys feel about me giving it a backstory to the battle scenario? It kind of allowed me to write it like a narrative, and I don't know objectively how, but it felt more engaging to work on that, rather than just planting the two to fight each other in a random location. Also, because I had two guys who use weapons, and are crafty and creative in using their surroundings in that almost Jackie Chan-esque movie way, I really wanted to have a section in close quarters combat, where each one takes advantage of the environments to gain the upper hand. It's actually why I put the fleece in this scenario, to provide something which they could fight over while holding onto. It was actually kind of just dumb luck that they also happened to be one of the main plot points of season 2 of the Percy Jackson TV series. But really, one of the main things I wanted to do with this video was to get as many new people interested in Stormlight and the Cosmere in general, as a whole. These books to me are really fucking awesome, and the worlds and characters are so interesting and unique. Honestly, yes, I know a lot of you haven't picked up a novel in a while. I was like that too. And while these are some large ass books, believe me, they're fucking long. Just give them a chance, promise you won't regret it. Okay, that's enough of me shilling. I wanted to point out how much of a hassle it was to find B-roll for this video, cause these two series haven't had extensive visual adaptations, so I had to use a lot of fan art and fan animations in the video. Nonetheless, I've put the names and links of as many of them as I could get in the description. Check them out if you like their stuff. They're all awesome artists and animators. And with that, we're done. So see you guys later. Peace out.